Over northwest Egypt, close to the Libyan border, Clive Caldwell flew his P-40 Tomahawk in a cloud of heat. August 29, 1941. Both sides were fighting for control of the desert sky as the war in North Africa went on. Abruptly, two Bf-109s, one flown by the talented Vern Schrower, descended in an ambush. Caldwell sustained injuries to his leg, shoulder, and back from the German fighters' unrelenting fire. Even more violent was the second strike that broke his canopy, splintering and shrapneling straight into his face. The right wing was damaged by round gun shots tearing into the fuselage, but Caldwell's determination became stronger despite the blood obscuring his eyes and the agony threatening to impair his judgment. He would not give in. He aimed his damaged P-40 at his assailants, a wave of rage and fury rising within him. This would set in motion the legend of Australia's best ace in World War II. "It's your life or theirs. This is war," he would subsequently jot down in a notebook. The 3rd of September, 1939, with a fraudulently changed birth certificate and a logbook showing just 11 hours of solo flying. He was 1 year too old to be eligible for fighter training. While Australia maintained its own separate service, similar to many other Commonwealth nations, many Australian airmen who desired the rush of continuous active combat opted to join the Royal Air Force. Australian Clive Caldwell joined the Royal Air Force on the same day that Britain declared war on Germany. With remarkable flying abilities, Caldwell was assigned to the Royal Air Force's Western Desert in North Africa as a combat pilot as soon as he was commissioned as an acting pilot lieutenant in early 1941. He was assigned to the 250th Squadron, one of the first squadrons worldwide to transition to the recognizable P-40 Tomahawk fighter bomber, after serving for a short time in a British Hurricane unit. Fighting for the strategically significant port of Tobruk, which was besieged and shut off by the Italian army and the renowned German Major General Erwin Rommel's Afrika Korps, Caldwell experienced his first taste of combat with the 250th. Although it was not formally acknowledged, the pilot assisted Flying Officer Jack Hamlin in downing an Italian Cantier Cant Z-1007 bis bomber early in June. This was supposedly the P-40's first victory. It would not be long before he achieved his first solo triumph. On June 26th, while escorting a group of Bristol Blenheims on a bombing mission, the pilot spotted a German Messerschmitt Me-109. This was Caldwell's unique moment to shine. With his Tomahawk's M2 Browning machine guns, he swiftly took it out. Lieutenant Heinz Schmidt of the Luftwaffe's 1st Group Fighter Wing 27, one of the greatest scoring pilots in the whole theater, was his victim without his knowledge. Despite his intense competition, Caldwell had completed more than 40 operational flights and was still quite unsatisfied with his aerial marksmanship when he finally achieved his first victory. Clive Caldwell saw the distinct shadows his P-40 squadrons made on a hot day in the North African desert. With a single shadow in his sights, he fired, watching to see where the bullet landed. By mastering the art of shadow shooting, Caldwell was able to strike moving targets precisely at different angles and speeds during deflection firing. His ability to hit targets before they realized he was there was made possible by this tactic, which allowed him to give up using tracer bullets and instead concentrate on precise shooting. Putting his newfound ability to use, Caldwell downed a Messerschmitt Bf-109 fighter on June 30th in Yonkers Ju-87 Stuka dive bombers. For Caldwell and for itself, this method proved to be useful. On July 4th, Caldwell saw a terrible event occur. A German pilot shot pilot officer Donald Munro, his comrade, as he was descending to the ground in his parachute during a flight. Although contentious, airmen often experience similar incidents. Caldwell's mindset shifted, and he was resolved to down enemy aircraft. 3 days later, in the vicinity of Tobruk, he shot down his first Italian aircraft, a Fiat G-50 Freccia Aerofighter. This resulted in a run of downings and likely deaths. Despite differences in official squadron logbooks, he downed 4 Me-109s and 1 more Fiat type. Other pilots began to take notice of his growing record. Caldwell, the newest ace from Australia, gained notoriety for his shadow shooting technique and was dubbed Killer for his unrelenting practice of strafing enemy planes and vehicles. His habit of using up ammo left over during sorties gave rise to the moniker. Later on, Caldwell came to detest the term, saying it was merely a way of not wanting them to come back and try again. Although he never shot anybody who landed in a place where they might be arrested, the moniker endured. His moniker was a result of his constant practice and ammo consumption. The great fighter pilot Caldwell was attacked on August 29, 1941, by 2 Messerschmitt 109s, one of which was piloted by the Luftwaffe's almost 60% successful pilot, Lieutenant Werner Schroer. As the Germans flew over northwest Egypt, Caldwell sustained injuries to his left shoulder, knee, and back. Another attack caused damage to his right wing by sending splinters and shrapnel through his canopy, and 2 more cannon rounds entered the fuselage and struck his face. Although Caldwell was an individualist, his commander, Squadron Leader John E. Scola, pointed out that he needed to concentrate on teamwork. Caldwell destroyed a Messerschmitt 109 by shooting aircraft down during a furious combat. Schroer, the pilot, had retired, but his 6th victory was recognized as the Curtis. Eventually, the German emerged as one of the most formidable and feared aces in the Luftwaffe. The mechanics at Caldwell's airfield discovered more than 100 rounds and 5 shells on the Tomahawk after he put out the engine fire and brought it back. Pilot Clive Caldwell received the Distinguished Flying Cross and a promotion to Flight Lieutenant for his valor during the events of August 29th. After recovering from his wounds, Clive Caldwell soon after downed 2 additional Messerschmitt 109s and injured another in late September. By that time, the Germans had given the pilot their own moniker, Tiger, as they knew he was an aggressive and persistent Australian in the RAF. Promoted to flight commander, Caldwell continued to score during the British onslaught, known as Operation Crusader, in Tobruk. On November 23rd, when over Bahira, he shot down Captain Wolfgang Lippert, the lead Messerschmitt pilot, after engaging 4 Messerschmitt 109s. After being struck on his vertical stabilizer, Lippert, a Knight Cross holder, suffered injuries that ultimately resulted in his death in prison. Caldwell is said to have downed 2 additional Messerschmitt 109s that same week in addition to damaging another one. On December 5th, the Axis launched another strike on Tobruk. Tomahawk pilot Caldwell led a patrol when a large enemy formation approached from the northwest. Caldwell directed the 250th Squadron to follow him, while the 112th Squadron engaged enemy fighters. Caldwell targeted a section of Ju-87 Stuka dive bombers from the rear and opened fire on the leader of the trio, causing one aircraft to burn and the other to lose altitude rapidly. Skilled pilot Caldwell engaged Ju-87s from below and behind, sending one down in flames and another hurtling to the ground. He destroyed the formation, taking down 5 Ju-87s and adding 5 more to the Stuka party by gunfire. Caldwell went on his rampage across the desert, taking down 3 Messerschmitt 109s and 1 Ju-87, damaging 4 more and perhaps winning one. On Christmas Eve, he shot down Erbwa Graf von Kageneck, a Luftwaffe ace with 69 air victories, marking his last victory. The 8th Army's operations in Tobruk on Christmas Day, 1941, came to a conclusion with this triumph. In the Pacific War, Japanese carrier planes attacked Pearl Harbor, and conflict remained unresolved. In Africa, Caldwell was given command of the 112th Squadron, which had recently received an improved Curtiss Kitty Hawk model. He adapted to the new model and participated in dogfights, damaging more Messerschmitt 109s. On February 10th, 12 volunteer pilots from Poland joined the squadron, and Caldwell took them under his wing, teaching them everything he knew. In a combat with 6 Messerschmitt 109s on the 21st, Caldwell downed 1, while the Germans shot down 3 of the Allied Kitty Hawks. For the remainder of the month, Caldwell maintained his hot run, making 5 damage shots and taking 1 down. On March 13th, on an additional patrol flight, Caldwell shot down another German model. Nevertheless, his wing was overshadowed, and the fabled Master Sergeant Otto Schultz assaulted 2 of his men who had separated from the formation. Luckily, the Polish and the squadron pilots made it out alive. The next day, they exacted revenge on their captain by bringing down Mackey, C-202, and exchanging more claims with another pilot. Air Vice Marshal Arthur Tedder praised pilot Clive Caldwell as an excellent leader and first-class shot after his last victory in Africa. Caldwell, who flew over 300 operational missions and earned 22 kills in North Africa, demonstrated the importance of leadership and cooperation, highlighting the pilot's dedication to his mission. Australia faced a new threat as the Japanese combined fleet attacked their own Port Darwin. After a brief respite, Caldwell was promoted to wing commander and led the Spitfire-equipped 1st Fighter Wing at Port Darwin in January 1943. The Japanese had a new weapon, the Mitsubishi A6M0 long-range carrier-based fighter aircraft. The first major clash with them occurred on March 2, 1943, when 9 Mitsubishi G-4M bombers and 21 Zeros encountered 12 Spitfires led by Caldwell. The Spitfire pilots faced technical issues, including freezing Hispano cannons due to temperature differences. Despite initial high losses due to inexperience and mechanical problems, Caldwell shot down a Zero and a Nakajima B-5M 2K torpedo bomber. One final air victory for the legendary Tiger occurred on August 17, 1943, when Australia shot down Mitsubishi Ki-46 Dyna. During his 1944 to 1945 tenure in the Australian military, Caldwell oversaw an operational training unit at Mildura and was awarded the Distinguished Service Order. He then commanded a 2nd Fighter Wing that was outfitted with Spitfire Mark 8 planes. He was chosen in 1945 to head an Australian task force that would take part in the last push against Japan. But when the Australians were redeployed by Allied Command to assist with operations in the East Indies, it resulted in the Morotai Mutiny in April 1945. After Caldwell and 7 other officers objected to the ground assault missions, 3 senior officers lost their leadership. Caldwell's drinking history resulted in a rank drop and a court-martial in January 1946. Australia's most successful World War II ace, Clive Caldwell, had the most number of verified kills of any Australian pilot with 28.5. Germany, Italy, and Japan all had aircraft in his victory total, 22 in North Africa and 6.5 in the Pacific.